So without further ado, hello and welcome to the first annual Society of Professional Journalists, UNH Chapters, award show. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate you being here. Just to give everyone a little bit of a background of our chapter, if you're not familiar, I know most of you are, but just about a year and a half ago, Angela approached us with the idea of coming up with this chapter and developing it. And in that year and a half, we've put on various events. We just tried to progress our journalistic knowledge, our connections within the space, and also just create more cohesiveness within the UNH journalism community. And we've been able to do that through these events, through these workshops, working with various journalists. We had a freelance event a couple months ago, just helping students that are graduating, get into the workforce and have a better idea of what to do when they graduate, especially in the journalism field. So we've had a lot of events, just kind of educating ourselves, getting a lot of information about different sides of journalism, digital, print, all these different variations, but we haven't really had any events, showing our work and what we've learned and everything that we've, put into action. So we came up with this idea months ago to kind of put on this award show to give all of you guys some recognition. So we appreciate you guys, submitting all the submissions that you had. All the judges really appreciated reading it, and it's just great to see all the participation and the passion for journalism at UNH. And that's part of the reason why we want to do it as well, is bring some more attention to this, underrated program here at UNH. So I think we did that for sure. So we had, through this process, 40 submissions for 5 different categories from 15 different student journalists. So a great turnout for the first year. Everyone had to write cover letters, and the story had to be published in over 500 words and follow AP style and SPJ code of ethics, and they all did. So and before we get started here, I want to just say thank you to all the judges. Emily Duggan, who graduated last year from our program at Kennebunk Journal. Nick Stoico, who graduated from UNH in 2015. He's a breaking news reporter at the Boston Globe currently and a grad student at Northeastern. And Emily Heidt and Erica Thoits at New Hampshire Magazine. And Todd Bookman at NHPR. They were the arts judges. And Terrence Williams from the Keene Sentinel, who did Editorial, and James Pindell and Adam Sexton and Jason King, WUMR. So thank you to all of you guys for helping out as well. We really appreciate that. Okay, here we go. So as I mentioned, the categories, we had campus news, politics, sports, arts and culture, and editorial. In the future years, we're going to be expanding, more digital content, audio content, podcasting, stuff like that for submissions. But this year we had strictly print submissions for all of them. But as I said, future years, we'll be switching up the categories as well. And for the first category, campus news, we were just looking for, contestants to submit something that showed their skills in general campus reporting, whether it affected, students, faculty, and staff, and how there's a trickle-down effect of all 3 of them. So without further ado, pass it over to Isabel.
All right, I am very happy to announce that the 2021 SBJ Campus News category winner is Aqeel Hisham for his article, UNH Faculty Prepares for Remote Instruction. The article, published in November 2020, follows UNH professors as they prepared for a switch to fully remote learning for the last 2 weeks of UNH's fall semester, as well as their overall reflections on their last semester balancing remote, hybrid, and in-person classes. So the quote I pulled out was the story's lead. For many professors and lecturers, the transition from in-person to remote teaching can be a daunting task. and what is quickly becoming a new normal in the world of education. So I pulled that quote because one, I thought it was very impactful into the judge of this category, Emily Duggan, also said that it was a great lead. The first quote in the story, which I will highlight very quickly, "This is my worst semester ever," also set the tone of the story perfectly. Duggan also highlighted the very strong nut graph, the three strong leading voices of professors in various departments on campus, as well as how Aqeel has grown as a writer over this process. So a quick personal anecdote. Aqeel and I actually have become very close over the past semester. We actually recorded a podcast together, which was probably one of the highlights of working at TNH for me. I've really seen how he's grown in his writing ability, his dedication, and I'm really going to be sad to see him go this year. So congratulations, podcast buddy. So Aqeel, do you have any thoughts, a few words you want to share about this story?
Thank you. Yes, the podcast was definitely the best way to end my career writing for TNH, but I do hope to see a lot of other, as Josh said in our meeting previously, a lot of other fields, primarily be digital, that will grow in the next few years. I'm also sad to be leaving, but my intention of taking this story was to really highlight the other side of this scenario. As you guys know, students' life has been under like a microscope ever since the start of COVID, and I would just wanted to highlight the viewpoint on the other side of the table. And so with each of the professors that I've interviewed really narrates a story of, because I really want to interview professors who have a lot of classes that were taken by freshmen. Secondly, a lot of classes that actually are, important classes. Thirdly, it's, professors that have a lot of outside elements into the class. And fourth is professors that aren't necessarily, well versed in technology. And I was really happy with the outcome of this article, and I'm really thankful that I won this award. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aqeel. And I just another point, at TNH this year, just witnessing Akeel's growth has been awesome. He's one of the few writers that isn't really scared to take any story, even if he's not totally sure on what to do or what to ask. He's always asking questions. What should I do here? What should I do there? It shows up in his work. He's a diligent worker. He takes pride in his stories, which is it's great to see. And he's improving every day. And um, I'm hoping you get the Vogue internship.
Oh my
Or-
God, I might just fail a class just to stay here another semester. Don't say that.
Um, so on to the next politics. For this category, we were really just looking to get someone who showed an exemplary skill in political reporting, especially during this past election season. So there's plenty to write about, whether it was local political news, local bill proposals, feature stories, anything within the space. And we've definitely had a lot of submissions. So I'm going to pass it off to Cam.
And I'm happy to announce that the 2021 SPJ Politics category winner is Anna Kate Munsey for her piece on the issues Sununu and Felties. And I could describe the article to you, but I think it's best if I just read straight from her lead this quote that I pulled. As the election approaches, with less than 3 weeks to go, many first-time voters feel stressed, overwhelmed, or unsure of the voting process and who is running for each district, seat, and party. This article will focus on the gubernatorial race in New Hampshire and the candidates and their positions on issues students are affected or care about. And I think I pulled this quote because, like Isabel said with Aqeel, it sets the tone for the rest of the article. And the whole article is written fantastic. And I think for a person like me who, for a lot of you who know me, don't keep up with politics, 24/7, I think this article is great for a person like that, great for college students, just to, keep them up to date. And the judges, they recognize Anna Kate's natural ability to write. I I think they described her as a gifted writer is what one of them said, and complimented her on the topics she highlighted throughout the piece and the thorough reporting all throughout. And, I know I make a lot of jokes a lot of the time, not 100% serious a lot of the time, but in all seriousness, Anna Kate's one of the hardest working people I know, and I'm lucky to have the privilege to work alongside her at both TNH and SPJ. So congratulations to my good friend, Anna Kate Munsey.
And I wholeheartedly second all of what Cam just said. Working beside Anna Kate for this past year has been awesome, especially during election season. She pretty much took on TNH's coverage and took the head on that, and probably did more work than anyone did throughout that time. So she definitely deserves this, and she's was probably our most important writer during the election season. So congrats to you, Anna Kate, and wish you the best of luck with the rest of your political reporting career. So for sports this year, it's pretty much just looking at we had a lack of sporting events this year, obviously, but just looking at whether it was different athletes or events that went on this year with the limited ones, what breaking news stories, breaking sports news stories that we have, features, like I said, and we just wanted to see, which journalists can make the most out of the difficult year. So I will pass this to Alexa.
I'm happy to announce that the 2021 SPJ Sports category winner is Brackett Lyons. For his piece, The Long Road Back for Forrest McKenzie, which was published in November of 2020. This piece was a super moving and unique new angle of the COVID-19 pandemic, which focused on the journey of a UNH cross-country runner and how he sustained an injury during the COVID-19 pandemic and how that looked different. Kind of going off what Josh just said too, like with the lack of sporting coverage, this was a really unique way to incorporate that and make it timely. So I pulled this quote, it's the lead, it's just very striking, and I'll let it speak for itself, but I'll read it now. A gust of wind blew damp autumn leaves across Forrest McKenzie's feet as he began his stretching. McKenzie planted his right foot firmly on the ground and gingerly stretched the ankle of his left. His left calf muscle was noticeably smaller than the right. It will take some time for them to be the same size again. I chose that because it was very descriptive. It put you right there with Forrest, and it was just like a really powerful way to pull the reader in, and very descriptive. And the judges liked how the conclusion circled back from the lead. It was like a nice full circle effect, and they really noticed the effort that Brackett put into writing and reporting on this piece. So congratulations, Brackett. If you'd like to make any comment about this, go ahead and do so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honored. I think this was a strong piece for me. Shout out Lisa Miller. Her future writing class really got me prepared to write a piece like this. And I think this was just such a perfect example of what a sports reporter could do without sports being played. I was just on Instagram, I followed Forrest and I saw him get hurt, and then I saw his first training session back, and I just thought, well, how's that going? What's that like right now? And I was able to just kind of hone in on the isolation that he felt during it, which I think a lot of people could connect with, but then it was sort of for him taken to another level. So I'm just really proud of this article.
Awesome, Brackett. And just another note on Brackett. This past year, he became a staff writer and then quickly kind of shifted to sports. But just seeing his passion for sports, his passion for writing is really inspiring. I myself was really interested in sports coming into UNH, and just seeing, Brackett kind of take over for me and Sam at TNH with Cam. Cam obviously did a great job as well, but just seeing his growth as a writer, it's been great. And there's obviously more to go. Next year, I think it's going to be a great year for you, Brackett. So congrats, man. On to arts and culture. So this year, a lot of room for creativity. We're all stuck inside, quarantining and everything. So everyone's picking up new hobbies, doing new things. So a lot of room for reporting on that type of stuff, and just seeing all the creative things that people are doing, having creative elements within the work, displaying those creative things as well was important for these submissions, and just a lot of the arts and troubles that went through as well this year. So that's definitely a theme, is just covering how people had to deal with a lot of the COVID related aspects. And the winner is Caleb Jagoda for his submission of the Crank Tank. Here's a piece of the story that I thought was pretty encapsulating of what it was. As a group, Half Dece is something like if Odd Future grew up 10 years later and was more fascinated with Nathan For You and notebook doodling than the skate culture and horrorcore. Together, they're intelligent but crude, articulate but vulgar, introspective but ignorant. And this piece was essentially about UNH students that have a great passion for music, and basically were shacked up in a lodge apartment, and they kind of found each other through different avenues and have been making music together for a while now. And Caleb used great prose. It was a magazine story, so he had a lot of room to showcase his writing skills. And it was just all the judges were super impressed. Knowing Caleb from his time as the arts editor at TN Nation and also his time at Main Street it's great to see him get recognition, because we've always known he's a great writer. But this is just another example. So Caleb, I don't know if you want to speak on that real quick.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really fun for me to write, because I'm just like a huge fan of music journalism and hip hop journalism. So it's kind of something I always wanted to do, just to like spend an evening with a group and like watch a group of musicians make music and like interview them, and then just like write a big profile on them. So it's cool that last semester I had the time to do that, like to devote a lot of time to that. It was really fun to write, and it was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, man. It's just, maybe can you speak on maybe your development, just going straight to Main Street, being the editor in chief, and just how that has helped you? Maybe you want to go down the magazine path, and more long form writing. How do you think your writing has grown in the past year, and maybe with this piece?
Yeah, it was cool to have the opportunity to do things that like I had a bigger timetable to do, and like there was no word limit, because once we switched the magazine to 100 pages, it was like we could really make it as long as we wanted. So, and I probably spent like probably a month or a little over working on the story, which was cool to have that long just to work like on one story. And like I had like hours from that night just from interviews just to like piece all that together in like a really long profile was really cool. And just in general at the magazine, it's been a great time. Like it was an interesting transition, because just going from like the week to week process of the newspaper to like a semester long project with the magazine was a really different, just a whole different project. But and it was interesting, like opposed to where I was writing a lot, like week in and week out for the newspaper, to just like doing less of that and more behind the scenes stuff at the magazine. And like it kind of felt like just being like a curator. Like I was just reaching out to people and like trying to get as many people as I could, like creative people, to contribute to it. So it was kind of cool to have like more of a like backseat role almost, where I wasn't like writing things every week and seeing them come out, but it was more like kind of slowly cultivating something over a long amount of time for the magazine.
Awesome. I feel like that perfectly suits your writing too, just the more creative side. It seems like you have all the perfect way to describe everything when I read your stuff. So definitely great job. Congrats. Hopefully see you working somewhere next year. On to editorial. So pretty self-explanatory. We wanted the editorial category, basically to cover skills in opinion writing on local and national subjects. And there was a lot to write on, especially with racial justice issues in the past year, COVID, a lot of important things happening, the election. So a lot of these things to write about, a lot of issues that were brought up, especially this past year. So we were really looking for to see how journalists covered it, how they their opinions on it, and the writing that went behind it. And the winner of the editorial subject is Katie Hoppler. Her submission, Michael Buble, an overrated figure in music. Kind of a funny story. We at TNH we published this kind of on a whim. We were low on opinion stories one week, and she brought up, "Oh, I have this story that I wrote a while back. Maybe you guys want to read it." And we read it and we were like, "Holy cow, Katie! Like, this is awesome!" Like, it's on a subject that you would never think of either. Michael Buble. We all listened to him during the holidays. We don't really think of anything controversial about Michael Buble per se. But this quote from her op-ed here is, "It might be a little harsh to so strongly associate the musical whitewashing with Buble, but his sheer popularity and corporate motivations are one of the most prominent and under-reprimanded artists in the United States." And it really, Katie dives into her experience in her band in high school and how they covered Feeling Good, which is Michael Bublé's, he covers the song, and which we've all listened to. But she goes into how, the origin of the song Feeling Good, the racial ramifications behind it, the importance behind it, and kind of how Buble ruins a lot of that, which we all, I'm sure a lot of us didn't know. I know I didn't know. And it makes you think about, him singing that song a lot differently. You don't think about it the same after, which is what the judges said. They thought her using her experience in the band, covering that song, having, an identity behind it, having her own opinion behind it, really pushed the editorial forward and helped it, just work. There's a lot of power behind it. Even if it's Michael Buble, you wouldn't think there's a ton of power behind it, but there is. So Katie, I don't know if you want to speak on it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh. And Josh actually encouraged me to apply for this, so thank you. I never, like Josh kind of touched on, I never really intended to publish this piece. It's not because I wasn't proud of it, but I just didn't think that anybody would care about what I had to say about Michael Buble. It's not that he's a pressing national issue. But I'm really happy that I did. I'm really glad that I still had my 1,600 word Michael Buble piece sitting in the drive of my computer when we needed it for TNH. As far as writing the piece, I've never been a fan of his, but for the longest time, I could never really explain why until one day I really sat down and started to peel back the layers through writing. And I'm really happy I did. And I think what I've learned from it is that if you're writing about something that you're passionate about, it shows in your writing. And I just highly recommend writing about something you care deeply about, even if you think it's something that other people won't care about, because obviously if you're interested in it and have strong opinions of it, people will be willing to read it. So I'm really happy that it resonated with people and that I was able to change some people's minds regarding Michael Buble.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Katie. Sorry, I had a hard time getting off mute there. So we kind of skipped over Anna Kate at the very beginning, but I'll stop share here. Anna Kate, do you want to talk on your piece as well? Sununu and Feltus.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Josh and Cam and everyone for all of your very kind words. I really appreciate it. So the Sununu Feltus story was one of the first we did on the 2020 election. And like Josh mentioned, I knew I wanted us to have really good comprehensive coverage, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted that to look like. And this won't come as a surprise to anyone, but I definitely was a little bit overly ambitious at first. And I thought we would do stories like that on every candidate. There's like 50 candidates on the ballot in Durham. So that project kind of devolved into our Meet the Candidates profiles, which I still think those are something I'm really proud of about TNH's election coverage, just because they were such a collaborative effort, and it was definitely voter education, but also good journalism. So that's something that I hope really gets carried on to the next election in whatever it'll be, 2 years. What else was I going to say? But yeah, I really enjoyed writing this story, and it was my first taste into the accessibility of candidates during election season and kind of how to work around that. So this is often the case, but Feltius, who was obviously the challenger, was incredibly easy to get in contact with and set up an interview with and talk to. And then Sununu, the incumbent, was incredibly difficult to get in contact with. And so that was kind of a theme we saw throughout the election, which I think is interesting. And I would say the main reason I really enjoyed writing this story, but it also, I think, kind of helped us guide how we wanted the rest of our election coverage to look like. So I hope overall the next staff can use our election coverage as a bit of a guide, but taking their own inspiration and whatnot. And I definitely hope no one ever has to cover an election like 2020 again. But I hope that some of the good parts can kind of be carried on to the next staff.
Kind of throw you back on the spot for a couple minutes. What do you think you learned most from the experience covering the election, and maybe not necessarily from this story, but just in general, maybe coming up with these ideas, these on the issues stories, what types of things did you learn?
Sure. So like I mentioned, we wanted from the start, we wanted election coverage to be an all hands on deck situation. We wanted everyone on staff to have some sort of a role. So I knew when I was kind of coming up with our game plan, I wanted not only like profile articles and issue articles, but we wanted comprehensive social media coverage. We wanted different people getting involved. So I feel like the main thing I learned was definitely some flexibility. The plans changed a lot throughout the month of October and then into November until we had the results. I would say the main thing I learned was just how successful we could be as a whole staff. It was the first time we'd never really collaborated as a staff on something that big, and I felt like it was so successful, and I was so proud of the work everyone did. And I think this isn't as much what I learned, but I feel like contributors and sports writers and people who just did arts or nutrition or whatever it is, I feel like everyone learned that when you apply yourself, you can do really well in any realm, especially something as big as a presidential election. So I guess I would say I was just really proud of all the work we did, and it was nice seeing how successful we could be as a team.
Awesome. Yeah, I second all of what you just said. I think especially covering it as a student journalist, having freedom to kind of make mistakes definitely helps with a lot of that. And I think we did the best what we could do, in large part because of you. So thank you. So just to encapsulate this whole thing, we appreciate everyone that submitted. As I said, there's 40 submissions, 15 different student journalists. So we appreciate all of you and whoever isn't here as well. So thank you so much, making this a great experience, a fun experience. Even for the judges, they expressed their gratitude for all of you, and we're really impressed by all of you and all your submissions. So thank you. And also, just on a little note for next year, we're going to be kind of trying to expand this a little bit more, maybe doing it in person, if we get the okay to do that. Yes, hopefully. So we're going to have also hopefully have judges come and kind of give their input in person, and maybe do workshop type things after, and give their feedback in person, work hands-on with us as student journalists, and help us out. And also we're going to be expanding to more digital content as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But yeah, so just to kind of encapsulate this whole thing, thank you to everyone for participating. And if you didn't win, don't get discouraged. Keep working for next year. And there's going to be hopefully more different ways to submit, different more awards to be had. So yeah, it's going to be growing. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your week, and congrats to all the winners this year. Great job. But yeah, have a great one, everyone. Appreciate all of you.